Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars, some of my favourite people, and interesting people as well. We tick all three boxes today with Krista Burgh. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Congratulations on this new album. The Hands of Man is so fascinating, and it's meaningful and purposeful. You don't waste a note, do you, really?
I think at my age you haven't got time. But actually the thing about this record is it's like a cornucopia of different emotions, different things. Unlike a recent album, Moonfleet and Other Stories, which was one hit, it's a 60-minute entire story based on a novel. This one is a selection of 15 tracks, and each one of them, as always is the case with me, I really want them to be important, to myself, and hopefully putting across an idea that other people can really latch onto and adjust and have an empathy for.
Yeah, and we're going to get into certain songs in a bit and why you wrote them and what they're about, because that is certainly fascinating, if not controversial as well. But let's review since we last spoke. I think it was 2 years ago we last spoke. Your daughter's got married. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much, yes.
How does that feel then? Have you lost a daughter or gained a son?
Well, her husband, which is a strange way of talking about him still, is a very close friend of the family. We're all mad about him, Wesley Quirk, and I've known him for 7 years now. And the best thing about Wes is we laugh a lot, and he treats my daughter with respect, which is vital. And Rosanna and he get on great. I suppose the killer moment was we had a humanist ceremony in a beautiful hotel in the centre of Dublin, just 27 people, and walking into the room with the beautiful the Canon by Pachelbel, I think it was, playing, and everybody had turned around to look. I mean, my daughter is a gorgeous, she was Miss World, and she's still absolutely stunning looking, looks after herself so well. And she was there beside me, and we're walking and everybody's looking at us. I suddenly went, it was that moment. And I had to look at the ceiling because the tears were just jumping out of my eyes, because it really struck me that I was giving away my daughter, and he was waiting expectantly at the other end of this room. And afterwards, all the young ladies came up and said, "Thanks for destroying our eye makeup," because when they saw me welling up, they all went the same way. But it is a moment, and we actually had 3 weddings. Sort of one was another one that you may have seen in Hello magazine, got 7 pages. In Ibiza, the whole thing, with the whole wedding train, and that was great fun as well. So I had to make 3 speeches, and the third one was we had a June 21st big party close to our home in Ireland for 240 people. But I did point out that to the young couple, as I would say any young couple, I'd say, a wedding isn't just an excuse for a good party. It's a commitment for life, and there is a very strong reason, particularly in these days of people splitting up so simply and easily, and too easily, in my opinion. My parents' generation certainly stuck it out, for better or worse, and that's what you're asked to do when you take those vows.
I was talking to somebody actually about this last night, and I wonder which way is better. Is it better now that you can walk away if you're a lady and in an unhappy relationship, or is it better like in the old days that you had no choice in a way and you had to make it work? It's a difficult sort of thing to comprehend, isn't it?
I would certainly, nowadays, I would go for the first of your 2 comments then, that I think if you realise that something is irreconcilably broken, and you do have the right to your own happiness, I think then it is correct that you should make that choice. However, if it's too easy, when you hear about people getting married and then they're split up within a year, I think, well, you obviously shouldn't have got married in the first place.
Right.
This is clearly a problem there. And I know that in my time, my generation was, you weren't supposed to live together with your future partner. But I think it's absolutely critically important. I would highly, highly suggest that anybody wanting to get married, live together with your partner for a year or 2 or longer, and just get to know each other, and don't go into this commitment of marriage and suddenly realize, oops, he'll use the top of the toothpaste, or else he makes horrible smells in the bathroom, whatever it happens to be. You've got to know everything there is to know about that person before you make that commitment.
The reason I bring this up, I listened to a track on your new album called The Keeper of the Keys, and it's incredibly deep. There's a line in it that says, "Tell them you won't take it anymore." And this really is a song about women and how they're treated around the world. And it is still staggering to me that in 2014 men are controlling women and allowed to get away with it in the most brutal ways. And it clearly strikes you the same, because that's what this song's about.
Absolutely. And in fact, I got a call from somebody recently who had played the song to a woman in an abusive relationship, and she was in floods of tears listening to this. That very line you just quoted, "Tell them you won't take it anymore." It's really about my belief that all women, wherever in the world, have the right to a life of dignity, a life of the right to education, the right to wear what they wish to wear without being told what to do by men. And I find this personally outrageous, and I do not want to stamp on anybody's religious beliefs, because if you believe that bananas are the future of mankind, that's your problem. In your belief, you can believe that, you know. But the fact is that when it comes to these arcane writings, written incidentally by men, that these things have to be this way, you know, I've always questioned dogma. I've said to my children, always question, don't accept that's the way it's always been,
right?
Because there has to be change. You know, this is the only way there can be change. And in this particular song, "The Keeper of the Keys," I'm imagining that I'm outside a prison and I'm hearing a woman calling for help. And this woman represents millions and millions of women around the world. And I think the fact that young Malala from Pakistan, who was shot in the face for wanting to promote young girls' education, that she got the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, I mean, that speaks for itself. There is an absolute right to education, and we are in one world now. It isn't one side dark, the other side bright. It's a one world situation with modern technology. Everybody has the right to, and what have these men got to fear? I mean,
right.
What are they scared of? They're scared of losing their own power. That's what it comes down to.
I'm not an educated man and I know very little about anything, but it still strikes me as odd that you could argue that it's okay to have a woman's face covered when you're in a relationship because you're more important than they are. It has to be wrong. It was interesting. I read an article yesterday that a production in Paris was stopped, a theatre production, because a cast wouldn't perform whilst a lady on the fly was wearing a hijab. What do you feel about that? I mean, would you stop your show? Because this is what this song's about, isn't it?
No, I wouldn't stop the show. But for example, as you may know, that I'm a very popular artist in Iran and have been for more than 25 years. The first Westerner to be granted the right to perform there. It didn't happen, although I did go there with some 3 or 4 of us to check things out, and we were told while we were there we'd probably be able to perform to 1 million people just in the city of Tehran, such as the popularity.
Wow.
But there were apparently going to be restrictions, which I would not have accepted. For example, men could not sit with women. Again, this thing of women wearing provocative clothing, it's a bit like, as I mentioned, I think probably in an interview recently, can you imagine going to a supermarket to find all the food covered up just in case somebody gets so overwhelmed with hunger they just grab the food? Now, this is the same thing. I do not get that. I mean, the whole thing, what you just discussed about women completely covered up. If that's their choice, fair enough. But if they're told, and I read something astonishing recently, some cleric or other was saying it is divine obligation to wear this kind of stuff. And I went, what? Divine obligation? Even the word divine is a question, a word that I would question instantly. As far as I'm concerned, the smallest boy in Mumbai is as divine as the Pope. No disrespect to the Pope, but we were all utterly equal in the sight of whichever God you believe in.
I don't know how you feel. It seems to me this world is getting more crazy by the day, and I hold my head in my hands sometimes and just wonder where we're heading. It seems as if we've almost lost the plot, and we're not seeing the wood for the trees and the trees for the wood anymore.
Exactly. And Alex, that's one of the reasons why in this new album I've covered so many different areas, hopefully to provoke people into thinking a little bit. It's not all thoughtful stuff. There's a lot of cheery stuff like "There Goes My Heart Again" and so on. But I would say The Ghost of Old King Richard is historical. I'm just looking at the titles here, and The Fields of Agincourt takes us back into history. But there's one in particular, well, actually two, Through These Eyes, which is about respect for elderly people. You know, when you go into an old folks' home and you see this elderly people, they were once young, running through the trees and running through the woods and stuff like us, and with a bit of luck we might be elderly and treated respectfully.
And I thought the candlestick was beautiful as well.
The candlestick, oh yeah, that's a good one. That's again looking at beautiful old artifacts and the skill that's gone into creating something that can be enjoyed through generations.
So then this new album is available now. It's out by Chris de Burgh. It always has meaning, it always has purpose, and I thank Chris de Burgh for coming on the programme. The new album is The Hands of Man. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Many thanks, Alex.
It's the big show where we talk to my favourite people and the world's biggest stars, and we've got one for you today. Chris de Burgh, how are you?
I'm good, Alex. What a nice welcome that is.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, you've impacted so many people's lives because your music over the years has kind of impacted so many people's lives. It lives on, doesn't it? That's a great place to be.
Well, it certainly is. You know, I always, right from the start, wanted to make records that were more like books that you kept and returned to. You know, how many times have you been walking past your bookshelf? Oh, I remember that book. God, I must read that again someday. It's the same thing with the albums that I've made. The last record I made was called Footsteps, which was a collection of covers, because I felt the time had come to look back down the mountain, having written and recorded more than 240 songs, like 20 albums worth. I thought, now let's have a look back instead of looking up to the next project. But for me, it was a chance to really solidify something, and which brings me to Moonfleet and Other Stories, the current record, because that is a story that I came across when I was a youngster. I thought such a fantastic story of smugglers, of hidden treasure, love story, drama, you know, the odd murder here and there, storms, ships going down, and there's 6 additional songs which are unconnected, but the Moonfleet piece is a 50-minute piece which starts with a 6-minute overture performed by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra in Abbey Road Studios, and then I sang another 3 songs with them live, and it was a thrilling project to be involved with. Narration and hornpipe, jigs and reels, rock music, chorale music. It's there, all happening in your own imagination.
What I love about you is you stick to what you're good at and what you're true to, which is proper music. You don't try and be popularist. I mean, this album is so you, isn't it? It's authentic. Is that very important to you?
Absolutely. When I remember when the day that I completed the whole thing, the final mix came through, and I listened to it from beginning to end, the first time to see whether was it going to work, and I was so excited because I felt this is something that I'm happy to be a legacy. Do you know what I'm saying? Something that I've done that hopefully in the future will sit happily with in other people's record collections and in their memories. But for me, I immediately thought, look, if it's not going to be successful, it doesn't matter, because I've done something that I'm immensely proud of. Do you know, one of those things that you're not sure if people are going to like or not, but this was a big moment for me, and I think it's going to do well, but I certainly hope people like it the way I do.
Well, I suppose at your point in your career and in your life, you've got nothing to prove now, have you? You've got nothing to worry about.
Well, I wouldn't exactly say that, but thanks for saying. I've got such a strident and strong international career still going, and I have a Facebook page, and you wouldn't believe the number of hits from all over the world. It's staggering. It's in fact, I put a little message up the other day. I'm humbled by the beautiful things that people are saying, but I definitely don't want to be thought of as, you know, has been. I had one hit record back in the 80s called Lady in Red. Never wrote anything before or since. Been living on that ever since. That's rubbish, you know. I've just come back from St. Petersburg, Russia, doing a show there. I do concerts all over the world, and in fact, Moonfleet will be in the UK in 15, 16 in Birmingham next year, and then 18th in the Royal Albert Hall, part of a world tour. But the thing is, it's to keep the brain active. I just feel that I'm in good health. The voice is in good shape, and you may be interested now. I've got a guitar right here on my lap, just in case you want a little burst or something. All
right, then let's do that. Let's take a piece of music from the brand new album. This is Moonfleet and Other Stories, the new album by Chris de Burgh, singing live on your favourite local radio station.
This is the point in the story when the young hero John Trenchard has been saved from the sea by his friend and mentor Elsevier, who has died saving the boy's life. It's called Greater Love. Here he lies before me, my friend for many years. He saved me from the water, now I'm drowning in my tears. Grief is but a poor word for everything I feel. There can be no greater love.
Isn't that lovely? From the new album by Krista Burgh, Moonfleet, and Other Stories is the album. Let's talk about your biggest hit. You mentioned it there. Your most heralded year probably was 1986 when you brought out Into the Light, which featured Lady in Red. Are you a bit resentful of it now, the fact that there are some people who think you haven't had a hit since? You mentioned it earlier.
I had some major hit records prior to that, which was one, for example, Don't Be the Ferryman. Remember that one? And High on Emotion, that was a big number one record for me as well. But Lady in Red, she became so big. Even today, I often see the words in the newspaper, for example, when the American Ryder Cup team arrived in the UK, or more specifically into Wales. The headline was Lady in Red, which was Corey Pavin's wife walking in, and the song is still a massive hit, greatly played around the world. And I kind of hope that people think, well, surely he must have done something else, and then they go and find it. You said Into the Light. Well, that record had some very strong rock songs on it, and you know, I'm thrilled as a songwriter to have had such a major record that will certainly survive past my demise. And one thing, I suppose, if I am going to be in any way resentful, is that I've been pigeonholed by those who don't care to listen anywhere else. They said, here's a ballad singer, I can't stand this song, stick him in the pigeonhole, and that's all he's ever done. And that's a pity, because they've missed out on 240 other songs which are so different in so many ways. I mean, how can I write Patricia the Stripper, Spanish Train, Spaceman Came Traveling, Crusader, Moonfleet and Other Stories, and only have ever written Lady in Red? I mean, please.
I think you're hoist by your own petard, because it's such a wonderful song. We always want to hear it. That's the problem. I mean, it is a compliment, isn't it?
Oh, here you go. I've never seen you looking so lovely as you did tonight. I've never seen you shine so bright. Lady in Red, she's dancing with me, cheek to cheek. There's nobody here. It's just you and me. Just you and me.
Thank you so much for that. Our audience will love that. Krista Burgh's new album is called Moonfleet and Other Stories. Is it fun being you? Because everybody knows who you are, and we know what you stand for, which is great music, and you can play, and you're not into all that auto-tune that they do on the X Factor and programs like that. Do you enjoy being you?
Absolutely. And I often have the chance. Recently, there was a school in Germany called in Winnenden where somebody went and slayed a whole bunch of the schoolmates, and this is not funny at all, but I offered to perform a concert for the kids, a year later, of such a traumatic thing to have happened. And we got about 500 youngsters, and they were amazed at one guy with a guitar and a piano performing for 2.5 hours solo performance. And that's what just sitting in front of young people particularly, they don't see guys with guitars, singing live, it's I see people wandering around with guitars, but as you said, auto-tunes. And dear folks there listening in Radioland, do not believe what you're hearing, unfortunately, anymore, because we have all sorts of gizmos in the studio. There's a thing called Pro Tools, which will make, if you can't sing a note in tune, it doesn't matter, folks. So that's why I like to stand up and be me and say, yes, I can do it, which is why our solid performance, every year I do 80, 90 shows around the world, and most of them sell out, and I'm absolutely thrilled because people want to hear a performer singing live.
I think what it is as well, I just saw Michael Bublé the other week in concert in an arena, and he got the big PA system and a 30-piece orchestra. When he sang by himself with just a guitar, it was the most magical thing of the whole concert, because it proved he could actually do it.
Absolutely. That's the same thing with McCartney. His show that I saw recently was stunning. And of course, at the end, what do you expect but this? Yesterday. That's how you do it.
Don't stop.
Oh, it's old school, this is the way it was done. I learned my trade initially singing at my parents' Castle Hotel in Wexford in Ireland, and in the evening I'd sing for the guests, and after I graduated from Trinity College Dublin with a degree, Master of Arts degree in English, French, and drinking, I went to sing in a friend's restaurant. And and then just reflect on this: that the Beatles, when they recorded their first album, Please Please Me, they had to go. They did the whole thing in 9 hours, and then they went back to Hamburg to honour a commitment, and they played 150 shows just in the cavern before they made a record. Now, listen, you folks, if you want to be a star in the music business with an enduring career, I've had 36 years of it, you've got to put in the work. And this applies to anything. And I'm sure you, as a radio presenter, you started off at the bottom. Maybe you do the little jobs, Chris, at the bottom.
I hate to tell you this. I came in for a car sticker 3 weeks ago last Tuesday, and I'm sat here talking to you now. I've no idea how this happened.
Well, you're pretty good at it, Alex.
I've loved talking to you. Chris de Burgh's new album is out now, and what a star and what a legend as well. And you keep going from strength to strength. And I love the fact that this isn't just another album to make money. This is something you clearly care about.
I love it. I absolutely love this record, yeah.
Thank you very much. It's called Moonfleet and Other Stories. And thanks for joining us on the programme.
Take care.